So we are done establishing the characteristics of a living system. We also trace the development and evolution of eukaryotic cells from an anaerobic environment, which is due to chemical evolution and the production of organic molecules. We also traced the interaction of these molecules that leads to the development of a protocellular stage to the evolution of true living eukaryotic cell through natural selection. To further understand these processes, let us be familiar first with the principles and concepts that guide and served as models for zoological studies. Before the time of Charles Darwin, philosophers and scientists proposed different ideas to explain the evolution. Evolution is the process by which organisms change over time as a result of changes in inheritable traits. So Charles Darwin and his scientific contemporary Alfred Wallace proposed that evolution occurs because of the phenomenon called natural selection. The one that you see in the slide, the picture, is Charles Darwin and the publisher of The Origin of Species, who is John Murray. Anyway, this theory of natural selection and other concepts which predated Darwin's theories were accepted by scientists and now called Darwinism. Professor Ernst Mayr from Harvard University explained that in order to understand Darwin's theory of evolution, there are five theories that should be taken into consideration. That is the theory of perpetual change, common descent, multiplication of species, gradualism, and of course, natural selection. The first theory is the perpetual change. Perpetual change is the main idea underlying the theory of evolution. It states that living world is neither constant nor perpetually cycling, but always changing. So different forms of organisms undergo measurable changes across generation throughout time. And the evidence for this is the fossil records that were discovered. And as you can see here, the left side of the slide, the left picture, is the fish fossil from rocks of Green River Formation in Wyoming, USA. And on the right side is the 100-year-old wasp fossil preserved in amber from Myanmar. The next is the theory of common descent. It states that all forms of life descended from a common ancestor through branching of lineages. Life's history is depicted as branching tree called phylogeny. Phylogeny is the basis of the taxonomic classification of animals. Species that share recent common ancestry have more similar features at all levels than species whose most recent common ancestor occurred early in the history of life. This is proven by different studies such as the study of comparative anatomy. Also, according to this theory, it is possible to trace the line of descent of all modern species backward until they converge on ancestral lineages shared with another species both living and extinct. And if we continue tracing backward through the evolutionary time, we will reach the primordial ancestor of life. Next is the multiplication of species. This theory states that the evolutionary process produces new species through genetic variation, especially variation that occurs between geographically separated populations. As you can see in the picture, flinchbird has evolved into different species, each adapting to the environment they are in by modifying their beaks. Uh, the shape and the size of their beaks depending on what food is available in their area. The theory of gradualism is the theory that postulates that large differences among the traits of organisms comes from the accumulation of small incremental changes over a long period of time. So this theory is important because genetic changes have large effects on organismal form, which can be either harmful or beneficial. As you can see here in the picture, the present bone structure of horses is the product of the changes or small changes of bone size and structures of its ancestors. And of course, the theory of natural selection. This theory answers the question on why organisms are constructed to meet the demands of their environment. This provides the explanation for the origins of adaptations, which including the developmental, behavioral, anatomical, and physiological attributes that improve the organism's ability to use environmental sources to survive and to reproduce. There are three propositions of natural selection. The first one is that there is a variation among organisms within population for anatomical, behavioral, and physiological traits. And the variation is at least partly heritable so that the offspring tend to resemble their parent. And the organisms with different variant forms leave different numbers of offspring to future generations. And the driving force in this phenomenon is adaptation. Adaptation is the expected result of the process that accumulates most favorable variants occurring in the population throughout time.